What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Zoom equals Doom here, and we're back. Episode 10 of my little bullshit whatever series. For some reason I feel like I have a extra. I'm gonna sneeze. No, I'm not. As soon as I said, "Oh fuck," I'm gonna sneeze. You ever get that where it's like you feel like the little tingling in your nose, and you're like gonna sneeze, and then you announce it to whoever you're speaking to, and then you immediately, your body just rids itself of it. It just knows. Your body knows that it wants you to look stupid. Anyway, got some interesting things to talk about today. So I'll just jump right into it. The corporate game. Should you play it? What am I talking about? I don't know. I guess just the more I think about the kind of the world we live in, I realize I just sound like such a freaking podcast bro, but I guess that's who I am now. So embrace it. I'm a podcast bro now. But I mean, I just think about the world I live in, and it's like everything is so gamified, right? So even like the collegiate institutions and the companies that recruit out of those institutions, it's all like, okay, they obviously recruit the top students, but then to be the top students, it's like this little game you gotta play with, like schmoozing your professors and grinding all night and making connections. Oh, fucking shit. You motherfucking piece of shit. Okay, well, that didn't work. Whoops, whatever. Anyway, but it's like a... sorry, I got that thing. Took me out of my train of thought here. But, you know, you schmooze your professors, you grind on your homework assignments, you know, you suck the dick to get the grade type of thing. And then you're off to jobs, right? Get a job. And you try to get the best job you can at the company that's going to pay the most. And it's also just the same game, you know. You got to suck corporate dick. And you went from sucking teacher dick to sucking corporate dick. And then, you know, I mean, to each their own, I guess. But it seems like, I don't know, in every other game that you play, there's, you know, an opt-in or opt-out type of decision. And especially to make it financially, you kind of have to opt in. I guess it's a game of life, too. Life's a game. It's not that much of a difference. But especially in, like, the working world, it seems like there is less choice, right? And there's always a sense of suspicion that is associated with anyone who's more nonconformist, in the sense that they don't, not interested in playing the game in the traditional sense. I'm gonna sneeze. Did it? Told you. But yeah, you look at anyone that doesn't really, I guess, play the corporate game or do it, and then they're the fucking hippies that are the weirdos, and you know, probably should be, quite honestly, because to a certain extent, you know, you have to participate, I guess, in the world. There's a certain amount of, it's like like when you're watching a movie, there's this, I took a theater class, so I'm obviously the resident expert now, but there's something called suspension of disbelief, or suspension, I think it's suspension of disbelief, which basically, like, you kind of have to, there's a certain amount of opting in, right, where it's like, okay, I realize they're acting. I realize that's Leonardo DiCaprio and not, like, James Scott or whoever the fuck he's playing, or Jordan Belfort or whatever. So you're kind of just, like, suspending the fact that, okay, you know, it's kind of bullshit a little bit, but to a certain extent, we're just doing that again in our lives, right? It's like you know, you go to work and you're, you know, corporate buddy bucket, versus when at home you're, you know, obviously rusty buckets. So it's like, you know, is it the same person? Like, maybe to an extent, it's a, you know, it's a person playing a character in the same way that Leonardo DiCaprio is not Jordan Belfort, but it's, you recognize him, in that sense. But he's, he's at work. It's his job. He's a little different, right? And that's a very literal way of looking at it. But he's the same way as a data monkey at Google or something. It's they got their work persona and their other persona. It's just like they're playing this big staged game. Sometimes it just feels a little ridiculous, oh my god, I saw that motherfucker. That's just something that's just normal. Everyone kind of expects you to be different at home than you are at work or whatever. And it's interesting that that's just the rules that we live by. And again, I'm not really challenging that in the sense that I expect anything to change, but it's just it's strange that we kind of, in some ways, are in this big theater act as we go to work and live our lives during 9 to 5 day, and then it's, evenings and weekends, you're finally back to your person, right? Now you're Leonardo DiCaprio versus being the actor you were all week. So no, do you play or not play? Right? If you don't play, you're a freaking hippie, and or you're some, like, you're out of the matrix or whatever I don't. I got these goofy ass words for it. But to a certain extent, you can't really, do anything meaningful in the traditional sense if you're not playing, right? And it's no fun not to play. But at the same time, when you play, it's, you're, again, I hate using the dick measuring analogy, but it actually applies in a lot of places. So, but then it's all a competition, right? It's like you got to be more of a corporate. It's like the saying, you want to get a better grade in the class, you want to get higher pay, you got to schmooze the boss and whatnot and work up the ranks and spend a lot of time. We just spend a lot of time doing that, and I realize it's customary to play, the game in that sense, but it's an interesting thought, at least to think of it in the sense it's not like, in some ways it's disingenuous, right? It's not your true person that, you don't really love your job. You just kind of do it because you have to. And then the ones that, do go into study fine art in college or, and probably rightfully so to some extent, just bullied because it's like, you're an idiot. Never gonna get a job that way. But maybe if that's what they're actually interested in, then that's what it is. Because, like, I guess for me, I'm just going to apply it to my own life because this is my video and that's what I'm going to do. So go fuck yourself. I've said this before, but I consider myself like a creative. I don't enjoy like the over, logicality of everything, right? I like to accept that there's some nuance and some uncertainty, some interest in I don't know, unique things. I don't know, I like the creative pursuits more than, these like routine, monotonous jobs. I realize I'm saying that as I'm doing like the most boring shit you've ever seen in Minecraft, but ultimately I think internally, my mind wanders a lot. I like thinking outside the box, and again, I realize I'm not really saying anything concrete, but I consider myself a creative, right? If I could work on a creative type pursuit, instead of some like, logic-driven mathematical type thing, that's what I would prefer. But ultimately, those jobs are laughed at in any like professional work. Being a creative director. First of all, like there's nobody gets that job unless you're. I don't even know how that works, but it's just not even practical to try and pursue something like that most of the time. So even someone like me who's considers himself creative and enjoys the creative aspects of, producing stuff. No, I kind of just have to go get a software engineering job because I can do it and it pays way more. It's just makes way more sense instead of drawing art or something in my basement. Because that's like if I thought about it, it's like, okay, what would you do if you had all the money in the world, you never had to work again, right? Or what if like you could get paid to do anything? First one, I'd probably be a professional athlete because those, like sports are fun. Ultimately, though, you got to be a professional athlete, and I am was not gifted. My last name's not O'Neill. I was talented, but not to the extent that my last name was O'Neill. But that'd be one thing I do if that was obvious. But the other thing I do is just try to, the other option, I guess my second choice would be just kind of to create something creative or interesting or fun. Like I said, I wanted to make like a video game or something, but I could also see myself making some kind of art or ARG, or just something just weird and unique that is would be fun for me to work on, with a larger group. If you don't know what an ARG is, it's like a augmented reality game or something like that. I don't know what the A stands for, but basically what it is, it's like a it's almost like a video game except it's real life. I realize that this is not making sense. I'll clear up the definition. So basically, it's like a it's almost like making like a puzzle, except it's in with like clues and things in the real world. So like examples would be creating like a videos and music and video games that all like link together and are seemingly inseparable of one another, but like if somebody were to kind of do investigative work to connect the dots, they would arrive at the fact that this is all a part of the same thing, essentially. So you're kind of like creating content to the extent where you're trying to like make people in the real world as like players of your game, but they're playing it unknowingly, right? They're trying to figure out like this puzzle that you've kind of put together through video games, videos, music, stuff like that. And it's really interesting. It's kind of like they it's obviously a very, very specific subset of people that even like seek or play out any kind of ARG. But it's really interesting and it's really satisfying when people kind of figure that out. It's almost like you're kind of just hiding Easter eggs, except like the whole thing is just one big Easter egg. Like, so imagine a game company said, "Oh, we're going to make a game, so like stay tuned," or whatever, and then like they go dead silent or something, and then some apt viewer looks at their message or something, or some soundtrack they encoded, and realize that there was a message saying that like the game exists, but you gotta find it or something. Anyway, but you essentially like kind of like not really fuck with people, but you'd create something with the intention that it's almost like a puzzle in the real world to figure out. Anyway, I always thought it'd be interesting to try and work with something with that. I realize that if you don't know what it is, just look it up. Just look up. There's probably some English guy with a sweet accent with this long ass video of him debunking top 5 ARGs or something. So just if you're interested, go look it up. It's really fascinating, I think. A lot of them are like creepy horror stuff, which for some reason I think everyone has an itch. I have an itch for horror stuff sometimes. But a lot of them revolve around that, and I wouldn't necessarily do that. Some of them are just like very strange, interesting Easter egg puzzles, except kind of the entire thing is an Easter egg, which is it's really interesting for me. Otherwise, I would love to pour myself into something like something that it wouldn't revolve around monetary success. I wouldn't have to make a video game that was successful. I'd make a video game that I wanted to make, irregardless of how it did in the box office, or even if it launched, it would just be a fucking GitHub link or something. That'd be what I could do if I had unlimited money, but I don't. And a lot of people have weird dreams and shit like that, like me, but they just have to play the corporate game instead, or hope they get lucky. And ultimately, you can't really bank on being lucky because it's a fool's game. So you have to. You gotta play the corporate game, and you gotta walk around with the proverbial measuring stick all the time to make sure that people are happy and you're holding up your end of the bargain, whatever that may look like. And you gotta put on that little theater mask. I guess I thought of this because I was on the subway, and there was a guy in a full suit. Granted, this is like, I want to say it's like 11 o'clock at night. It's pretty late. Anyways, this guy wearing a full suit, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like, I'm not going to read too much into it. I don't want to, whatever. But I'm looking at him, and in his hand, he's holding a mask, like one of those theater masks, the ones that just cover your eyes. But there's like an elastic strap that goes around, and there's like strange colors and patterns around the eyes. Like, it's what, it's like the very, very old version of play where they would just like strap on a mask and it would just have like some expression on it, except it was just like the raccoon eyes, except they're a bunch of colors essentially. But I was like, so many questions. First of all, why is this like regular looking businessman? He doesn't have a briefcase, doesn't have a suit, or doesn't have like a suitcase, has nothing. All he's got is he's holding a mask. He's not wearing it, he's just holding it. And I was like, okay, I'm like, well, sussed out. I was like, does he have a gun? Is this like something? And I was like, like, where would this have come up? Like, why does he have that? Where does he work? Right? Is he a part of some secret club or something? I just thought the whole Epstein thing, like, people, these corporate overlords running around on some island with these masks doing God knows what. Creepy shit, but it's just like, that's what made me thought of the whole, like the ARG stuff, and then kind of this corporate game. It's almost like that. You're just like, he goes to work and he's got to put on that mask and pretend like he's the hustler, and doesn't want to take a day off and has no other dreams but to make Uncle Sam more money. I don't know. I realize I'm coming across very anti-capitalistic right now. That's just the mood I'm in. So I could 180 at any point. So I don't take anything I say too seriously. Everything's a joke. I've always believed that. I think everything's a freaking joke. I've never wanted to get really offended by anything, even if it is personal. I don't really care. I just think it's there's no point in getting offended by anything. Why? I mean, if it does, and I wonder, even evolutionary, what kind of, is it a defense mechanism being offended? Is it I realize it's an emotional response. Okay, so if somebody says something that's supposed to offend you, it's an emotional response, right? But evolutionarily, why is that, right? Especially in why speech, like speech-wise. I think about cavemen. Like, what about, when we first started speaking, when is it that we became, have an emotional response to some, word? And if it's the intent behind something, like, I could walk up to somebody and say, with the angriest look on my face, with all the intent in the world, fuck you, buddy, eat shit, right? And they're not going to blink, right? And I'm like, you make a joke about a disabled kid and their son's autistic or something, and then next thing you know, like, they're crying or something. It's so strange. I'm thinking evolutionarily, why would it have helped anyone? I realize evolution doesn't work in a straight line, and nor does it really always play the best card, right? It's just kind of, it's random to a certain extent. But it's strange to think why, like, being offended is a response, and it's not something that just is taken so seriously. I suppose I never saw the function, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but whatever. I can't control that anyway. But yeah, got an age-old question I'm gonna ask myself. I realize I probably cover this. I mean, maybe like in tangents, but either way, I'm gonna ask it more explicitly and go through what I think about it. Can money buy happiness? Well, money, as an isolated entity, I think most people would agree cannot buy happiness, right? It can buy pleasure. There's a big difference there, but it can absolutely certainly buy pleasure, right? And this kind of goes back to the discussion on happiness versus satisfaction, the distinct difference there. So I think if we define happiness and pleasure in the same vein, where it's just kind of short-term, short-term kicks, absolutely, I don't think anyone should doubt that money can buy pleasure. It 100% can. And for the most part, a lot of people are after that, right? Day after day, they seek that pleasure. And to a certain extent, we need to, right? You need to seek the pleasure of food so you don't starve, right? seek the pleasure of sleep and sex, so you sleep and reproduce, right? So it makes sense in that sense to kind of be a pleasure-seeking animal. But if we're going to talk about satisfaction, now that we've have this developed conscious and can think and act autonomously for ourselves, the satisfaction becomes more of an important figure, right? It's because we're self-aware, and the pleasure is transient, very much transient. And theoretically, you could perpetually have enough money to just buy you pleasure after pleasure until you overdose and die, or become so addicted or dependent on something that you have to more or less be hooked up to the real world equivalent of a morphine drip 24/7, which I'm sure somebody's done. Somebody's tried that, I guess. But can money buy satisfaction? Money can buy happiness and pleasure in the short-term sense, but can money buy long-term happiness or satisfaction, as I'm going to define it? I certainly think it can. However, if you're actually, no, I'm going to say by itself it cannot. But I think in the right hands, it certainly can. Being deployed correctly, it certainly can aid in the the effects of long-term satisfaction. I think if nothing else, if you understand your own desires really well, it can give you the freedom of choice to pursue long-term satisfaction. It gives you the option to do so, whereas being financially insecure, sometimes you don't have the option to pursue your long-term satisfaction, right? So you have to forego that. But I think having money as a variable outside of the equation is certainly one that could open up the doors to allow you to pursue a long-term satisfaction route of life, way of living. But isolated by itself, it absolutely cannot. But I think in the right hands, it can certainly buy your way to enough freedom and enough time, I guess, to self-reflect and understand yourself, that you can gamify your way or structure your life in a way that you're going to be satisfied. So what I mean by that is, like, if you don't know yourself, in the sense that you don't know what you want to do, or maybe what you want to do is you want to figure out who you are. So then it's like, okay, then you have to, having the money to explore and like try to answer that question is something you can do and can certainly give you satisfaction, whether you find out what you really like to do every day or not. And ultimately, being financially insecure is not going to help you answer that question. But having the money obviously would. That's one way to think of it. But on the other side of that, like, you obviously see people that have a lot of money and aren't happy. Well, I mean, it's because they have put no effort into themselves, right? I think anyone that knows anything about, I guess, long-term success or happiness would say that doing difficult things and doing things that you don't enjoy doing, only because they're better for yourself in the long term, is one way that you'll be happy. You can be happy, or no, I'm sorry, not happy. I shouldn't use that. Satisfied, right? Doing hard things and kind of completing milestones and things you weren't sure you can do, pushing your limits. That's where satisfaction is, I think, in the long term. And whether you have money or not, if you're not pursuing that, you'll be miserable. At least if that's your ultimate desire. Since I only have my own perspective, I can't really speak confidently on what other people see as their what satisfies them. So I'm going to speak from my perspective. But I truly think, whether you have money or not, if you don't understand enough about how to use that money to pursue meaningful things, right? Like, I think one really stupid thing is like, oh, I'll just, I can have a bunch of money so I can just do nothing all day. So you realize how that is not, you're not going to enjoy that. I'll tell you that right now. You're not going to enjoy that. So you might enjoy it for like a week or a month, maybe 2 years if you're, drinking every day or something. But ultimately that you're gonna be miserable with that, and you might as well not have money, right? So it's kind of a waste to even have the money if that's what you're gonna do. But having a plan in place, it's like, okay, maybe I want to be in a band. Okay, I don't, but like hypothetically, if I was someone that my dream was to be in a band, and I somehow won the lottery, whatever, and I can just buy all the drugs and alcohol that I want, and just sit in my house and invite my friends over and drink, and like that's probably fun for a little bit. Depending on who you are, you could have fun with that for probably months. But if your ultimate desire is to be in the band, or at least to try a band or something, it's like you should deploy the capital that you can start the band, right? So, find a drummer and hire this and hire that, and then try the band. And if it, and you obviously have the fallback if your band sucks or something, or if you decide, all right, having a band sucks ass, I fucking hate the band, I instead want to, play the violin or something. It's okay. I guess I'm just using shitty examples, but you get the point. But it's like that's where the money should go. That's where it can buy you satisfaction if you're actually pursuing these meaningful things, realizing that no amount of money is going to make you good at the violin. Like you still have to practice. You still have to get good at it. It's not going to matter how much money you have. You can buy somebody that's better at you at the violin, but like the whole point is like you want to be the good violinist, not to pay somebody. You might as well go to a Broadway show at that point, which I think that's where people mess up, is where if they have a bunch of money and they just like spend it to, live out all whatever their dreams are or something, but they don't, you still have to be doing something hard, right? I think that's something that is consistent. Anyone that is really satisfied with what they've done over a long period of time is done because they do like something hard, and they're like, I wasn't even sure if I could do that, but I did it, and I'm so happy with myself and my life because I tried this hard thing and I did it. Versus people are just like, oh, if I have money, I don't give a fuck, I can just do nothing. And no one, doesn't matter. I have money. Who cares, right? I'm rich. You're broke. It's like, okay, fine, but like you're kind of pissing away that money if it's not, gonna move you towards happiness or even maximize it, to an extent. So I think it obviously aids in the pursuit of pleasure. Absolutely, I don't think there's any denying that. And I think with the right deployment of capital, you can certainly pursue satisfying endeavors, right? But certainly in the wrong hands, if you're a complete dumbass and don't know what the fuck you're doing, you can be just as miserable with or without money. So I think it's also like ignorant to, you ask some celebrity, oh, can money buy happiness? And they're like, no, it can't. And then you're like, fuck you, buddy. Like you have no idea. Like you're worth $10 billion and I'm fucking broke. Fuck you. I'd be so happy with money. And like, I agree with that sentiment more than like the douchebag saying, oh, it might buy you happiness. So I certainly think with an intelligent strategy and with enough time and self-reflection that you can really figure out what you want to do. It's going to satisfy you in the long term, and use the money for that versus strippers and cocaine. Woo, that's like, yeah, you're going to be miserable doing that. You're an idiot. Like you didn't think about this in the long term at all, did you? So I certainly think that that's kind of my take on it. I'm certainly there's caveats and everything. And I think to a certain extent, what I would use money for if I had $1 bajillion, I would just use it to continue trying to think about what I would enjoy doing. Like I would try the things I talked about, and maybe if I didn't like it, I would do something else. And again, since I didn't have to, go gargle corporate nuts all day, it wouldn't really matter. So then I could theoretically waste hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to learn the violin because I wanted to be a violinist or something in an orchestra. Not that I would ever want to do that. Sounds terrible. But if I wanted to do that, I could, and it wouldn't matter if I wasted all that time. Wasted all the time not making money that I would have to if I was broke. So that's kind of my take on it. I don't know. That's what I think. Which I guess leads me into the next point. With or without money, with money as an object, right, as something that is to be considered, and I'll pretty much every function nowadays, you have to consider the variable of money, right? At least if you're not retired or already super rich. So then what do you do, if you don't have money, right, and you want to still pursue those satisfying things? I don't know. I'm in the midst of that right now. I don't have any money, and I don't really love the prospect of playing the game. Some people love the game, like the corporate game, the school game, where it's like you have to, this one-upsmanship to the max, where it's, getting the best grades and getting the best job, making the most money and getting the hottest girl you can find, and then like the sweetest golden retriever and the most decked out house. Like, you can kind of just rack up accolades like that, and like, yeah, you might, on paper, you might look like a player, but I don't know. I mean, maybe people enjoy that. I don't know. I don't think. So I'm trying to use the time now where I am, where I'm broke, because I'm gonna operate under the assumption at some point I will not have the same concerns financially that I do now. At least I'm hoping. If I'm broke my whole life, I'm gonna fucking hate myself. But if I'm at some point I'm not, which I'm gonna operate under that assumption. I want to use this time now to let it burn, let it soak in, so that I know what it feels like, and I can appreciate both the aspects of being broke and kind of having money. So being on both sides of that coin. And I think if I were to just wish all my time away when I'm broke, it might feel a lot different if I actually start getting my hands on money. So I, to a certain extent, just want to let it simmer a little bit now, just so I kind of know what this feels like, and I can appreciate it and reflect upon it accurately, instead of being overly hasty with any assumption I get about money and satisfaction. Right? If my quality of life jumps a bunch, as soon as I start making money, I don't want to make sure that the associations are accurate here, so I'm not. I'm not kind of jumping to conclusions. I don't know. There's a lot more that goes into it than that, but that's ultimately what I'm after. So I'm kind of making decisions in my life based around that, and even major life decisions. I try to make money as least of a factor as possible. If money can be ignored in a life decision, it will be ignored. Not to say that I have a credit card, I'm just going to go swipe my credit card and go on a trip to Hawaii because I want to. It's like, no. Okay, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I don't want to turn down an opportunity or do something I don't want to do just because it's money and I need the money and whatever. I want to make sure that it's almost something I would have done if money wasn't an object, which is a hard position to be in, especially if you don't have money. It's not like I could really rationalize financially why or why not I'm doing something, not having any money. So there's kind of two sides to it, but I try to be as oblivious and apathetic to the financial piece of things that I can, just because it just weighs on people, right? People care so much about money, and it's such a thing. And I just thought about all the emotional real estate and emotional energy that I would invest towards money this, money that. And it's just like this, think about how much time you could free up for anything else. Any other kind of discussion, I think, is more productive than one that centers and revolves around the emotional and psychological attachment we have to money. Just as people in this society. So I've made a conscious decision to make it as least of a factor in my day-to-day and month-to-month, year-to-year operations as possible, which, again, is hard because I'm broke. But, to the extent that I can, I try to care as little about money as possible. To some extent, it's not that I don't want to learn anything about money, or personal finance. I consider myself, literate in that sense and in making decisions that are still smart, but I want to do so in a vein that isn't about saving money, making money, saving money, making money. It's all right, I want to do it in a sense where it's more about the principle of it, right? Or it's practicing self-discipline, or doing something hard, again, like I said, because I think that's good. It's not about the money. It's about what it's, what else can I draw from this, right? Like if I'm going to save money because I want to save money because it's the right thing to do, personal finance, I don't want to frame it in the sense that it's, I want to save money because I have money. I have more money now. It's like, no, I want to frame it in the sense it's like, all right, let's like challenge myself to save money on something, just as an exercise in self-control. I don't know, and I justify it to myself that way. So I think that in a lot of ways is healthier than making it about the money itself, and about less about that and more about that, because it scales, right? A lesson in self-discipline will scale to everything, right? But a lesson in money will only scale to money, right? So it's only relevant in the discussion of money. So it's like, it's not as impactful if we're not talking about money. Versus self-discipline is applicable everywhere, right? So that's why it's the way I like to frame things when I am talking about money, is to try and extrapolate as much out of it as I can that's not money related. And that's just the way I want to operate. And if it isn't the right way or the smartest way, money-wise, I don't give a fuck. Don't care. And until I have unrelenting reasons not to operate under that premise, I will continue to operate exactly how I'm operating now. So unless I am on the verge of bankruptcy and homelessness, I will continue to operate under that precedence. Regardless of the pennies I could be saving, right? Because I just want to free up my emotional real estate and my mental time for other things that are more productive. And I guess laughably, I would consider this more productive than a discussion about money, or thinking about money, or saving money. Just because I guess it's not like in the real world, but to me, it's something it's enjoyable. Who enjoys talking about money, right? You only really enjoy talking about the things money can do, or like the game of money, which again, I've established I don't like playing games in that sense, the game of life or corporate life. So why would I want to talk about the game of how to, save $8 on your taxes? It's like, I don't care. It's like, is it even worth it? The 4 hours I would spend, saving $8 on my taxes, I effectively made $2 an hour or something. Am I worth that? Really? Like, no, it's more worth my time to say fuck that, and I will pay the $8 so I can play at Minecraft instead. So, which again I realize is not the uber practical reasoning that the money gurus would back, but it's ultimately my decision in my life, so I don't give a fuck, which is good. I think I need to have a vein of that. I think everyone needs to have a vein of that, where it's like, I'm not just going to be this conglomeration of other people's opinions and other people's viewpoint on everything. So maybe while someone else's viewpoint might be more fiscally intelligent, where they're saving every dollar to invest in the S&P 500, and you'll be sorry because it'll go up in 20 years. I don't give a fuck. Like, fuck you, bite me. I'm gonna live my own fucking life, and I don't want to have to be told what to do in every step of the way. I mean, if it's a dumb decision, then let me learn that the hard way. Let me fuck up. Let me be so sorry I didn't invest my little meager savings into the S&P 500. Go fuck yourself. And I instead just kind of, was more apathetic towards it, like I am now. I hope I'm wrong about something like that, because I'll learn. But I would not have just blindly listened to some clown who's some personal finance guru just because he sounded convincing or had a British accent. Again, I don't know what it is about British accents. We just trust them more. I'm serious about that. It's a real thing. Yeah, and I guess this kind of leads me into my next point. Are you okay with yourself, right? So think about this, like, for the most part, again, maybe if you're, I can't speak for everyone's circumstance, but generally speaking, you spend the most amount of your time alone with yourself, with your own thoughts, with your own things. And I realize people just fill that void with anything and everything, right? They fill the void with consumption of social media, where they're kind of living other people's lives. Or I hate social media, so you'll see that as a common thread, of course. But you'll spend a lot of time with your own self, alone. No one else. Your friends aren't there. You're alone. You'll die alone. You'll do a lot of things alone. And I think a lot of people now have trouble spending time with themselves. They don't like their inner voice, inner dialogue. And I think there was some discussion whether or not you have an inner dialogue, or 50% of people said they didn't have an inner voice. Some people said they did. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have an inner voice, and if they have a British accent. But yeah, whether or not you even like that person, or you just. Some people I think are in denial about how much they don't like the time they spend with themselves. And there was certainly a larger portion of my life, maybe not larger, there was just a portion, a memorable portion. So I don't know what, time-wise, I'm not sure if it wasn't a majority, but a memorable portion of my life where I was less okay with myself than I am now. And I think stuff like this, where I'm just kind of making myself think and talk through things, is ultimately what allowed me to self-actualize a little bit and be more comfortable with that. But there was a point in time where it's I was always having these internal battles with my inner dialogue, wanting to do something, not doing this, whatever, where it's frustrating, and you don't want to spend time alone, so you just dig yourself into some kind of weird addiction, or drugs, or bugging your friends, or you're always doing something, or always stimulating yourself in some way. I think that's why meditation got so popular, is that it gives people a chance to have to be alone with their own thoughts, right? You're not supposed to be. I guess it's kind of cheating if you listen to some clown on YouTube walk you through the steps or something, listening to this nice relaxing music. That's the same thing as just watching freaking porn. It's still stimulating in yourself. The whole point of it, meditation, is to be silent with your own thoughts and talk to yourself, not to some dude with a British accent on a YouTube video. That's not who you're supposed to be working with. You're supposed to be working with yourself. And I think people miss that. That's the point of meditation. And I don't think you need to be in a crisscross applesauce position, sitting outside in a forest with your humming whatever, to be kind of talking to yourself, and I guess working through what you're supposed to be, thinking about who the fuck you are and what you want to do and all that stuff. Right? And some people just never do that. They just never do it. They just exist, do what everyone else says and follow the step-by-step guide, or they follow the BuzzFeed article they read about how to, do whatever. But ultimately, since we spend so much time alone, to me, I really value, can I, this is my little test, can I go to a restaurant by myself, eat a meal entirely by myself, and enjoy myself, all myself, no books, don't call my phone, don't talk, don't bring anyone, just by myself, go to a restaurant, sit down, and just be alone with myself, eating a dinner with myself, right? That's kind of my litmus test for, where I'm at. And if I can do that smoothly, and, I enjoyed the deep meal, and I, wasn't just checked out the whole time, it's, to me, I think that's a good test. So if you're unsure whether or not you're okay being by yourself, I encourage you. Take yourself out for dinner. By yourself. No books, no phones, don't do any. And you can bring your phone, but don't spend any time on your phone. Don't be swiping on your phone. Just put your phone down and just sit there and eat your meal, think, and have little discussions with yourself and see where you're at. Was it boring, miserable, whatever, right? And ultimately, like, think about this. It's a funny way to think about it. If you're bored, it's because you're fucking boring. You're the guy there, right? You're the only person there. You're the fucking boring one, you know. So if you're bored with, you know, eating dinner by yourself, maybe it's because you're boring, right? I love doing stuff by myself because I sit there like a fucking creep sometimes and I'm laughing and they're like, you know, someone watching me is probably like, why the fuck is that guy laughing? But, you know, I like thinking to myself, I'll look over and I'll see something and then I'll draw some crazy hypothetical up in my head and next thing you know, I'm chuckling at myself, like thinking about something stupid. And then, you know, it's like, that guy's eating by himself. You know, he's crazy. But he's like smiling and laughing. Like, what the fuck? I'm not saying that that's got to be the extent you do, but there's certainly times where it's not, you know, joyous. A lot of times it's just kind of, you know, more meditative than anything else. But I think it's a good measure, good measuring stick. You know, are you okay with yourself? It's also a good measure of, you know, thinking of whether or not you're interesting. Right? I feel like a lot of people now, because the you know, all of our opinions are formed by these machine learning algorithms on social media. It's, you know, do you really have these? Are you interesting? Right? Are you someone who's going to be intriguing to talk to and listen and you know, to learn from and to listen with? You know, because a lot of times you can't even listen to yourself, right? You just kind of tune yourself out, and this also gives you a chance to practice listening to yourself. Right, really digest what you're thinking and saying to yourself. Because another thing is, like, people suck, and I mean, to a certain extent, I probably do too. I'm, you know, not a master at this, but nobody like listens to shit anymore. They just like sit there and they're just ready to say whatever they want. And you know, it's almost like they're having two separate conversations, like completely independent of one another. I even think of like conversations with, you know, I think my mom said there was somebody like that she worked with that, like she would say like, oh, like I'm, you know, going to pick up my kids from this and that, or I'm going to do this and that. And then like her coworker's talking about having like literally a complete A to B full conversation with herself, and like neither of them responded to anything about each other's words. They were literally just using the other person as a proverbial brick wall to just spit words at, which is crazy. So like I think about my, you know, interactions now, and am I being a brick wall? Are they being a brick wall? Right? Are they even? You know, if I say something, are they thinking? Are they just waiting to hear one word that they recognize so they can jump out and throw their own little anecdote into the mix? Right? So if I just, you know, I want to go visit a national park. Ooh, I've been to Yellowstone, you know, Zion National Park, and they're like, okay, well, you clearly just heard I mentioned something about national parks, and you just jumped in and said, you just listed all the national parks you've been to, right? Whereas, like, if you maybe were, you know, maybe you were listening in the sense that you heard me say national park, but, you know, a better question would be, oh, like, what do you like about the parks, or where do you want to go, where, you know, like really listen, right? Instead of just like blurting something out that's like related to you in your life, stop and hear what they're saying. What are they talking about? Like, you know, think about, you know, try to understand them better. And they often reciprocate that more, you know, when it's your turn, you want to blab about something that you want. Because I think at all points, everyone wants to, at a certain point, they want to take over and talk about something specific. Like if something interesting happened, you know, you got to take the floor and you got to be able to tell a story, right, about yourself and, you know, and that side of things. But ultimately, I think more often than not, people are terrible at the listening and the absorption of another person's story. They just listen for like one or two buzzwords, and then that's pretty much it. So yeah, kind of this test of whether or not you're okay spending time with yourself is an interesting thing. Not everyone can do it. I probably, there's a certain point in time where I probably couldn't do it as well as I wish, at least. And yeah, I think people just blame it on like the introversion extroversion thing, where it's like, oh, well, I don't like spending time with myself. I'm just an extrovert. Like I just like being extroverted. That's my thing. You know, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that spectrum. Right? I think it's okay to roughly define that things, but in a lot of ways, I think it's more fluid than that. It's more contextual than that. And I think, you know, I'm not sure why there's no really real great function in boxing yourself in. And you know, I'm an introvert, so I like to stay home and watch movies and do nothing. Are you just using that as an excuse to stay home and watch movies and do nothing? Or, you know, and of course, who doesn't like just doing nothing, right? Or just having no responsibility, okay? And, you know, it's I just don't think it should be used as any kind of excuse or crutch to align with a certain behavior or set of behaviors. I think instead you should just, you know, I'll just, you know, I'll do this, I'll do that, or it's like, if it's something I want to do, I'll do it, otherwise I won't do it. I can be alone or not, it doesn't really matter. Versus like, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm introverted. Or, you know, and it's even like, okay, fine, even if you are, just like, what's the issue with just challenging yourself a little bit? You know, again, doing something hard. You know, there's a whole lot of aversion to that. So I don't see the real great function in, you know, accepting that you're a certain type of person that doesn't do this stuff or doesn't do well with this type of stuff. Like, leave the door open. Why would you kind of box yourself in? It doesn't make any sense. Why someone would do that? You know, why would you cut yourself off from doing something new or interesting? So I don't know. I don't love the labels of introversion and extroversion. I think it's mainly an excuse to again align by a certain type of behaviors without, you know, just having an excuse. And you know, I would probably say that excuses, generally speaking, are you know, not great ways of conflict resolution, because again, it's not really, you don't really resolve anything by providing an excuse for something. You probably feel better, but again, like I guess most people are talking to brick walls anyway, so it's not like your excuse is going to be met with much real thought and deliberation in terms of why. And even that, it's like, you think people are that dead set on, you know, oh, that makes total sense. It's like totally okay that, you know, you're introverted and don't want to do this. It's like, all right, man, I'm just trying to invite you somewhere, and you're not going to do it. So I don't know. I just wrote that on my list for some reason. When I wrote that down, I probably had more to talk about. But that's all I wrote down, so that's what I got on that. I'll probably revisit it. Like I do circle back to a lot of the points anyway, at some point or the other. But anyway, I'll wrap it up here. But if you have any topics or anything interesting you'd like me to talk about or discuss, I would really be interested in hearing it. You know, my plan, I suppose, I might mention this in the next Let's Play video too, but my plan is to start getting on a more consistent upload schedule. I realize that is those are basically your last words as any type of content creator. As soon as they say that, that's when they disappear off the face of the earth and don't post for a long time. So, but I'd love to see how long I can do one Let's Play video a week and 2 of these, you know, hour-long video game therapy vlog, whatever, vlog things or whatever. I don't know what the fuck you even call these. These are just free association sessions or something. But I'll do the 2 of these a week on one of the Let's Play videos, because there are some things and some checkstones and milestones I want to hit in the Let's Play world, and I gotta do Let's Play videos to make sure I'm hitting those marks. So otherwise I'm just like here digging around doing God knows what. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Wait, let me just finish this line. Peace.